This should be for all of those who came to have that AI discussion. This is the time. Josh, are you in the room?
I am here. I'm here. Hopefully you can hear me.
Lovely,
It's me all right.
lovely. All right. Well, they didn't come to listen to me. Take it away, sir.
All right, great. Thanks. So I didn't know I was going to have to follow a shark. So hopefully we can keep the momentum going here. Susan, fantastic info. Thank you so much. So hey everybody, my name is Josh Dupre. I am a services regional offer manager in our AI and data services portfolio. So today I'm going to talk a lot about how do we talk about AI? How is the Dell perspective kind of bearing out in our industry, in our environment, in the marketplace? How are we talking about it? How are we thinking about it? How do we frame the conversation? So you're hearing a lot today, especially about how Dell's integrating AI into the tools and processes that you have available to you. I'm going to talk about how Dell can help you in your business, especially with the services that we have around AI. So also, if you go to the next slide, let's talk about the current landscape of AI. You know, what do we think about? A lot of folks are using ChatGPT and a lot of chatbots out there. It's become obviously much more mainstream now. Consumer AI was present for a long, long time, and it has rushed to the forefront of everybody's perspective. So when we talk about enterprise level AI, we're talking about a very different animal than we are from the day-to-day chatbots that you're used to interacting with. Most of us are familiar with that. But when we think about enterprise AI, there are a number of things we need to consider. So I want to start here to kind of give us a good firm starting place to kind of move forward in the conversation around how do we think about enterprise AI. Number one, it's going to leverage your data. It's not somewhere else. It's your data. So we need to make sure that we're preparing your data. It's accurate, it's relevant, it's usable for the training and deployment of the AI models that you want to do. We already heard about security today. We have to have your data protected and secure. Data security is a crucial aspect of enterprise AI. Sensitive data is often what we're using to train and deploy models. So having that security as a foundational element is key as well. And then when we talk about pervasiveness, what we're talking about is adopting AI for your whole business. Maybe you're starting with a proof of concept or a small use case or a pilot of some sort. Ultimately, the goal is to utilize AI everywhere in our business that it makes sense to do so. So we have to think about how do we scale this and look to the long-term pervasiveness to be able to support multiple use cases, to scale across multiple teams, make sure they're integrated in the right way, again, while keeping that secure and protected data along the whole time. And then this is all very complicated. So how do we include this in a simplified way? You've seen some of the management tools today with AI Ops, which is awesome. Simplification, ideally, AI should simplify the tasks of your IT teams. So it can benefit from the advanced analytical and real-time responses of IT tools, can automate common processes, and then turn that time and energy towards innovation and fewer mundane management tasks. So this is kind of where we're moving to. Hey, when we're talking about enterprise grade AI, integrating AI into our business, these are the foundational elements that we're talking about. And as we move to the next slide here, we could talk a little bit more about the current state of enterprise AI. Early days when AI was first kind of breaking into the scene, obviously AI and machine learning had been around for a long, long time. But in the last couple of years, a lot of folks were trying out pilots or proof of concepts and really struggling to turn them into, real life use cases in their industry. We're seeing a lot more folks finding success, transitioning their historical proof of concepts into live production, meaning that, we're finding that maturity, we're finding that readiness with folks. Cost is a huge factor. A lot of folks are spinning up initial elements in the cloud, which is great. You can kind of do a little proof of concept or a small use case there. But then when you look to scale, what does that cost look like if you're going to stay in the public cloud? And what we're seeing is a lot of folks are finding that number scales dramatically when we're looking to scale production workloads, utilizing that use case or that pilot use case to then scale into their business. Cost is a big, big, big factor. We've heard about data. I'm going to keep hitting the data button here because it's foundational to AI success. You've heard the term garbage in, garbage out. We have to have clean, proper data on the front end to be able to flow into our models, into our use cases, to be able to have the outputs that we desire on the back end. So, here there's a big number here, 89%. Most, we can say, organizations consider data to their Gen AI strategies. Really, it should be 100%. We should all view data as key to their Gen AI strategies or their AI strategies. So we have to prioritize that. And then the skill factor is challenging. This environment continues to evolve very quickly. So how do we stay ahead of the curve? How do we keep our skill set sharp? That's a challenge for everybody in the marketplace today because we don't know what the next necessarily long-term view is going to be. Agentic AI is having its moment right now. What is it going to be in 18 months? we got a lot of guesses and very few firm ideas. But how do we keep the skills and capabilities to make sure that we're staying on top of that and finding the value that we need? Dell's capabilities are quite deep, quite broad. We're always adding new ones. So I'm coming to you today from a services perspective to say all of this is on all of our plates today to have a conversation around AI. How do we think about it? Dell's here to support your business and find success where it makes sense for you. So we go to the next slide. This is going to look a little familiar based on what I talked about here. So when we talk about implementing this into our business, into your business, these are the considerations we need to. We need to determine our highest value AI use cases. Where is it going to make sense? What does success look like to implement AI into your business? We have to make sure that data is accessible, accurate, and secure. You heard me say that already. That's what's going to be feeding into your model. So we have to make sure that that data is secure and accessible, prepared. Those data pipelines are healthy and ready to go. And we need to make sure the infrastructure is right size. This is where Dell, I know, has a really, really strong brand. We've got great hardware. Folks are very familiar with that. We know that we can do that well. What you may not know is the breadth of our professional services capabilities. That's only one piece of the puzzle, is putting the right hardware and sizing up the right solution for you to find the success. How do we make that work? How do we integrate that into your existing environment? How do we then scale that after that initial day zero, day one implementation takes off? We have the services to support you through that rest of that life cycle. And likewise, identifying what the right use cases are, starting with that pilot, identifying where we're going to begin, and then moving that from production. Ideally, it's going to be on-prem. That's the most secure. It's going to have you the most access to it. It's going to give you the best performance, and it's going to be the most cost-effective in the long term when we utilize on-prem infrastructure. Skills gaps and simplifying operations and improving adoption is really where we're seeing the rubber meet the road with Dell Professional Services in particular, and providing the support for our customers to find success where they need to. They can put their resources where they need to put them, and Dell can support along the journey, whether that's early stage strategy, whether that's actually implementing the solution and making sure the software and application stacks are integrated in a healthy way, and then scaling into the future. So I'll get into a number of those things here in a minute. But as we move into the next slide, this hopefully will look familiar. We've seen this in a number of Dell messages. The Dell AI Factory. It's a really cool statement. What does it mean? If we're not really familiar with it, I'm going to break it down a little bit. I like this graphic because it's kind of a simplified view, and it really tells the whole story. We could start, if we go left to right, in a way, we start from the left. Again, data is foundational. It fuels it. You're going to keep hearing me say that because it's really, really key that we identify early on that is your data prepared to support, if we jump to the other side, the use cases that you identify as being key for your business. So again, the use case is key. I love the the prompt with the pointer. Thanks, awesome. So yeah, the use cases, identifying that. If you need help identifying what those use cases are, we have the support and the services to do that. And then you can see at the bottom here, sustainability and security is foundational. Security, you're going to continue to hear that bell rung on this call and other discussions with Dell. Security is key. What good is properly packaged data if we're not protecting it and making sure that it is continually locked down, secure, and only available where it needs to be available? It's built on our world-class infrastructure and hardware. We are well known for that in the industry. Where you may not be as aware, sort of the services and the open ecosystem portion here. You're going to see a future slide here where I kind of showcase a little bit of the open ecosystem. There are a ton of players in this space. I could name drop here all day long. What I want you to take away is Dell has a lot of deep relationships and long-standing relationships with a lot of the key players in the marketplace today. So whatever the use cases are that we're driving, there are software vendors out there that do that really, really well. We partner with them a lot. NVIDIA is probably the biggest one that you probably are aware of, that we work very closely with. We co-engineered a number of our solutions with in the AI Factory. Very, very tightly integrated. What that does is save you time trying to figure out what elements are key. If you just work with us to identify where are we trying to get to, what do the use cases look like, we will help build that proper solution for you, bringing in the right elements and then the right services to get it off the ground. So the next slide here is really kind of the starting place. If you're really, really early, an accelerator workshop is sort of the key element to kick things off. So if you're still debating on, hey, how do I get this thing started? Not even for just generative AI, like it says here, but really AI implementation of any kind, or identifying what those use cases are. Our accelerator workshops are a great place to start. You can talk to your Dell account manager about this. You're like, hey, what does it mean if we do a workshop? I'll give you a quick overview here. It's really just a half day. fee waived workshop. What that means is Dell is going to cover the costs of allocating the resources, the time, the materials that we're going to work with you to identify, hey, what does it make sense to do in your business? Where's your business at today? Where do you want to go? We call it our as is to be methodology. What's standing in the way today? What's prevented you from moving forward already? Identifying what those challenges are. And then we're going to build out a high level roadmap to show you, here's how you get from point A where you are to point B. Here are the challenges in between. Here are the steps that you can take. And here's a roadmap to what that success looks like. Now, there's only so much we can cover in a half-day session, a 4-hour session. However, it's a great way to kind of clear the log jam if there are parts of your business where you're feeling a little stuck or frustrated or unclear how to find success in that part of your business, particularly with AI. There are a number of different arenas we can have discussions around when it comes to an accelerator workshop. So just having that conversation to kind of identify where are the challenges residing today, where are we looking to go to, that's going to help us kind of zero in for you and find that successful penetration point much, much quicker. So moving to the next slide, I really, really like this overview. When we talk about, again, I'm in the services organization at Dell. When we talk about our services, this helps frame up where we kind of see the journey for AI with you and our customer set. So if you kind of look from left to right, you can see that format from strategy through implementation, through adoption and scale. No one customer is any one point along this journey unless you've taken 0 steps into the AI pool. But chances are you probably have different parts of your business kind of existing on different parts of this spectrum. What I want you to take away is, we've kind of framed our professional services piece around this framework, and we have key services across the board here. So early day strategy, you saw the accelerator workshop on the last slide. That's sort of our base starting point. We've got multi-week engagement with our pro consult advisory services to kind of have other discussions around what does it look like to kind of build out, the strategy and implementation ideas for your business. When we move into that implementation stage, this is on top of just our standard deployment. Yes, we can rack and stack, a bunch of XC servers and cabling and switches and making sure that the right storage is there. But what does it look like when we're actually taking, not just turning things on so you have great blinky lights in a data center, but to actually have fully functional hardware and solutions operating in your environment, on your data, connected to the rest of your ecosystem, or at least the ecosystem we want to start with. That's what we mean when we talk about implementation. We have key implementation services that build that out. Everything from Run AI, ClearML, Cohere North, and a ton of others. Depending on what elements need to be present, we can help implement those into your business. And then as we move into adopt, really this just is, hey, we've taken that initial pilot, it's up and running, we've got it connected. Then how do we move and broaden that into scale? You could see here on the right, into the rest of the business. What does scale look like? Maybe not just for that one particular use case that we identified and we got off the ground, but other use cases. How do we broaden this part of the business into other parts of the business and find that success? That second bar there in the blue for the complete use case solutions, these are just a few. I've got a later slide here, I think it's the next one actually, that covers a number of use cases. There are so many use cases out there, and most folks are running multiples. A lot of times when we talk about use cases, that proof of concept, that starting point, is just identifying that key piece that we are going to see success in your business, and find that where automation, where that machine learning can help benefit and streamline, reduce risk, take away, minimize errors. You can go back a slide there, Austin, 1 second. There might be a timer on that slide, sorry. And then right underneath that, again, here's the data part again. So I'm going to touch on this here in a little bit. I keep saying data is important, but what do we do with it? I'll touch on that a little bit more. What I mean by that is, how do we prepare the data? How do we continually manage it? And then how do we keep it secure? We've got services for all of that. So these are all this is sort of the larger framework that we look at when we talk about the AI journey. It's a spectrum. No one person, again, is just, you throw a dart and say, you're right here on the journey. Let's just start from there. It's a conversation. There's a lot of different, again, services that we can provide to help, for everything from the early day strategy setting on through actually implementing and then growing that in your business. So if on the next slide, we'll talk a little bit more about use cases just to help you kind of clear the air about what those look like. Again, this is by no means a comprehensive list, but these are probably the most common ones that we usually see. So if you're been a little confused or not sure what I meant when I kept talking about use cases, this is what we're talking about. Everything from content creation in media, digital twins, particularly used in manufacturing and development, having a digital representation of something that you're going to create. We can iterate, you can make changes without having to build in the real world every time that you need to do that. Code generation, computer vision, utilizing that. So there's a ton of use case applications. This, hopefully, if you've been a little like, I'm not sure how we're going to implement this, maybe this is kind of piquing your interest. Be like, oh yeah, we could use some, I could think of some ways we could use computer vision in our environment. Talk to your Dell account manager. They'll get our services team engaged. We can have a deeper discussion around what that looks like and help build that strategy for you. So I put this in here just to help understand, like, this is not theoretical. This is real world applications we're talking about when we talk about implementing use cases into your environment. This is where we're going. So on the next slide, things to think about when we're having those early stage discussions. If any of you have seen our AI hardware in person, particularly our XC servers, they are not, your grandma's server of old. They are not the normal, 1 to 2 U servers out there. They are large. They are process heavy. They are physically very heavy. Just to deploy these takes a very specialized set of skills. What does that really mean? So it means we need to kind of reevaluate: is your data center from a logistical and physical standpoint ready to handle, when we talk about implementing these solutions? So if we've identified the use cases, we've prepared your data, we know, hey, we're good to go, we know where we're going, we've got our North Star, we've got our proof of concept. Great. Is your data center ready to handle this new, very intensive hardware? Because if we haven't prepped to be able to handle these very heavy, more power hungry, more cooling needed servers, it's a conversation we can help with. We have data center assessment services. If you're not sure if your data center has had those sort of evaluations before, we can help make sure that your data center is either ready or advise you on what it looks like in order to prepare to be able to do that. Everything from, is it going to be air cooled? Is it going to be liquid cooled, which is a whole nother discussion. When we talk about cabling here, you can see here on the slide, typical servers maybe around like 30. When we talk about our XC servers, you're talking hundreds of cables. So this is logistically a very serious thing to consider, let alone, when we talk about the strategy and implementation of all that stuff. The physical element here is not to be ignored, and we can advise and help with all of that as well along the way. So moving on to the next slide, we have our data conversation. You've heard me, again, I've rung this bell a few times, and I really want to make sure that we have a more one level down discussion here before I move on. When we talk about there's really three core areas we kind of really grab onto when we think about how do we power AI with data and drive meaningful results. It's got to start with data discovery. What data can be used for your use cases? We identify similar pieces of data and we pair like for like. And when we can enable an ongoing pipeline of data. If you've heard about data pipelines, that we're talking about is a healthy flow of healthy data from where it exists to where it needs to support the business. So enable an ongoing pipeline of data so it stays current. And then we look for commonalities across users, data types, data sets, making sure that we assess for similar data architecture in a process of pattern alignment. And can move on to preparation. We need to sanitize data to poison models that we're going to implement. We look at who can access it, what it should be labeled as, so the right people have access to the right data. We need to make sure we understand where the data lives. If you're not sure that the data is represented in the right places today, we have the ability to help do that with our services. And we need to, again, heard this before, make sure the data is secured. And then after that, we can actually use the data to fuel the models that we have and we're looking to implement. So there's a number of things we need to consider before we can hit the ground running, as it were, implementing solutions in. So these are all things to think about. You are not alone in trying to figure this out. If you have capabilities in your business, fantastic. We have the ability to support you with our professional services, particularly around data preparation, data discovery, and then implementation here. All right, a couple more slides for me. I promised here on the next slide, I would talk about kind of what we're thinking about. And I think also there might be one more click through here. Oh, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong side. Yeah, go back one slide, my fault. So I talked about data and then we're moving into implementation. Again, I talked about this a second ago. Implementation is not just deploying it, plugging things in, racking and stacking, making sure lights are running, and then we're good. Implementation is making sure that we understand the right solutions so that we're aligning with business outcomes. We've got the right skill set to not just drop this in and be ready to go. We've got the right skill set to get things off the ground, implemented into your environment, and running with your production data and running in production environments. That's so you could see that value created as quickly as possible. Again, an integration piece is key. So as if we're just dropping in the hardware, that's one thing. Implementing means, again, that software layer, that application stack, making sure all of those connections are up and running in the right way is what we're looking to do so that you can scale and you can iterate and you can continuously improve. You can make sure that it's operating the way that you intended to and find that success so that you can ramp quickly and grow your business in the way that you want to and find other opportunities to advance your business with AI. So we want to start, by obviously the low-hanging fruit, the easiest ones to identify, and then implementing from there. Again, we're going to iterate, we're going to scale, we're going to continue to grow your business. Okay, a couple final slides for me. I'll go to the next one. So I talked about gets complex very quickly, and this is what this slide kind of is meant to show. You've heard me talk about all the elements, and when you kind of see them layered on top of each other here, it's kind of like, oh, I get it now. This is a lot happening. This is not just we need to figure out what we want to do, drop in the hardware, and go. We need to foundationalize the right size solutions from a hardware perspective. Yes, you've heard about some of that today. Compute, storage, networking, GPU conversation is a whole ball of wax, and making sure you have the right skills to implement that into your environment. You've heard me say a few other times, the software layer, the application layer, you can kind of see here in the middle, a lot of things to consider from a tools perspective and a solution perspective and a software perspective. We can help sort through all of that with you to make sure that you have the right key pieces and have the right elements in place so that the outputs are really what you're looking to identify so that you can focus on here, the top part, the focus areas, the use cases, the things that are going to drive your business for success. All right, one more slide here. Just another friendly reminder. You saw this already. This is the framework. This is how we're viewing the professional services journey, the customer journey around AI. How do we start from a strategy? How do we implement that successfully in our business? How do we then provide better adoption in that so that we can hit that rocket ship you'll see on the right and scale in a healthy way in our environment intelligently, intentionally, and with the success that we want. So last slide, how do we take our next step? What do we do? Well, we've got a website that's really fantastic, our AI services, dell.com/AI-services. Reach out to your account manager, talk to them about where you're at in your particular journey, whatever details you can provide or what questions you have, bring it to them. What we want to do, again, is identify that use case. We can do that with a workshop or advisory services. Find success in your business, and then we'll have a conversation around, hey, is your data center ready? Is the data prepared to support what we want to do here? And then we've got you covered from the full range of implementation services, hardware, software, application, all those elements. So we've got you covered. We've got a number of fantastic professional services we continue to grow in our business to make sure that you're going to be well taken care of and find the success that you're looking for in your AI business. Okay, that is all for me. I really appreciate the time, everybody.
All right, Josh. Thank you so much.